first time I heard it was just after sunset when the forest goes quiet in that strange, heavy way, like everything is listening for something you can't hear yet. I was splitting firewood behind the cabin, the air cooling fast as the sun dropped behind the tree line. My breaths puffed into faint clouds, and the smell of pine sap clung to my clothes. I remember lifting the axe for one more swing when I heard a sound behind me. It was subtle at first, a footstep, or maybe just the dry crunch of leaves shifting under something too light to be wind. I turned automatically, expecting to see my cousin Adrian. He'd been out hunting rabbits earlier and liked to sneak up on me just to laugh when I jumped. But the yard behind me was empty, the tree line still. Birds had stopped calling, no rustling, no insects, just silence. Then I heard it again, my own voice, but not where it should have been. "Hey!" Quiet, breathless, too close behind me, yet impossibly distant at the same time. The word dragged slightly like someone was trying to match my tone without fully understanding how human speech worked. I spun around so fast I dropped the axe, heartbeat pounding in my ears. No one was there. The clearing was bare, only the cabin windows reflecting the last blue streaks of daylight. "Adrian!" I called out, hating the way my voice wavered. But the instant the real sound of my voice crossed the yard, something deeper in the woods answered. This time it was perfect. My exact tone, same breath pattern, same rhythm, yet still wrong in a way I couldn't explain. Like hearing a recording of yourself slowed by a fraction of a second. I backed toward the cabin steps, eyes scanning the darkening trees. Something stood just at the edge of the tree line, barely visible through the last strands of light. Its outline was human-shaped, tall, still, arms hanging at unnatural angles. But it didn't move, not even to breathe. The dust swallowed its details, leaving only a silhouette. But every instinct I had screamed that it was staring directly at me. "Stop messing around," I shouted, but I didn't even believe myself. Adrian loved pranks, sure, but he didn't imitate voices. And the shape in the trees was too tall, too stiff. The figure took a single step forward. The woods reacted instantly. Birds burst upward in a frantic flutter. Branches shuddered. The air itself seemed to recoil as though the forest recognized something I didn't. I stumbled backward onto the cabin porch, slamming into the rail hard enough to bruise my ribs. Then it spoke again. Not with my voice this time, with Adrian's. "Hey," it said, the exact way he said it when he was about to sneak up behind me. Only Adrian wasn't in the woods. I knew where he was. He was 30 miles away in town, texting me an hour ago about being stuck late at work. My phone was still in my pocket, still in that conversation. The creature, or whatever it was, didn't step closer. It just stood there, as if waiting for something, testing something. The silence stretched so long, I felt my lungs burning. And then it tilted its head, slowly, smoothly, too smoothly, like its neck wasn't built to move that way. And that movement snapped something primal inside me. I reached for the cabin door with shaking hands and shoved it open, stumbling inside. I grabbed the shotgun by the coat rack, though every part of me knew it wouldn't matter. The figure didn't follow. It stayed where it was, the last strand of light outlining its unnatural stillness. Then just before full darkness swallowed the yard, it lifted its hand. It wasn't a wave. It wasn't a threat. It was a perfect mimic of the small gesture Adrian always made when telling me to follow him. A signal, a learned behavior, an invitation. The forest went black, and the creature vanished as if it had never been there. But sometime after midnight, as I sat awake with the shotgun across my lap, I heard it again. My own voice whispering from the tree line, "Come here. I found something." Sleep didn't come that night. Every shadow in the cabin seemed alive, stretching longer than it should, bending toward me in the flickering light of the dying fire. I kept checking the windows, the tree line outside, even the space between the beams above the porch. Every snapping twig, every rustle of leaves made me flinch, as if the creature could leap from the darkness in an instant. I tried calling Adrian's name into the silence, but the words felt hollow, swallowed by something beyond comprehension. And then I heard it again, softer this time, threading itself through the rustling trees, a faint, deliberate echo of my own voice, only slower, careful, learning. The next morning, the sun cut weakly through the dense forest, painting pale lines on the cabin floor. I tried to convince myself it had only been my imagination, the stress of isolation, the overgrown woods, and too many horror stories in my head. But when I stepped outside, the evidence told another story. The ground was marked with impressions that didn't match human feet, elongated, uneven, some so large they looked almost like animal paws pressed flat against the soft earth. And there at the edge of the clearing, a perfectly circular patch of crushed leaves formed a ring, like a stage the creature had used to practice something. I spent hours circling the cabin, examining the tracks. Each step I took seemed to provoke more signs of its presence, subtle scratches in the bark, tufts of hair or fiber that weren't mine, small but deliberate. The forest felt too still, each tree holding its breath, the birds utterly silent. My mind raced through every explanation. A wild animal? Too precise. A human intruder? Impossible, they couldn't mimic voices so exactly. And yet, I couldn't deny the subtle familiarity, the imitation. It wasn't just watching, it was learning. By evening, I found myself sitting on the porch with the shotgun again, waiting, listening. The forest exhaled slowly as darkness returned, the long shadows stretching across the clearing. I tried to distract myself, counting the knots in the wood, thinking of anything mundane. And then faintly, almost sweetly, it came. The sound of Adrian laughing. I froze, my stomach twisted. The laugh was perfect, exactly his tone, his timing, his inflection. But I knew he was nowhere nearby. My chest tightened as the sound repeated, moving closer, circling the cabin. Panic finally broke through my numb terror. I grabbed the flashlight and stepped onto the porch. The beam cut across the tree line, swaying with my unsteady hand. At first, there was nothing. Then at the far edge of the clearing, I caught a glimmer of movement. Tall, too still, arms hanging at impossible angles. Its head tilted slowly, unnaturally, as if mimicking me scanning the forest. I shut my eyes for a moment, telling myself it wasn't real, but when I opened them again, it was closer, just beyond the circle of light. The forest swallowed the rest. The imitation had learned, and it was patient. The next day I barely spoke. Every sound I made felt dangerous, as if the forest itself could carry my voice to the thing outside. I kept the cabin windows closed, doors bolted, and the shotgun within arm's reach, though I knew it could walk through darkness without fear. I tried to ignore it, keeping busy chopping wood, fixing the leaky roof, anything to feel normal. But the forest wasn't normal anymore. The trees seemed to lean closer to the cabin, casting unnatural shadows, making the light shift in strange ways. Even the wind whispered, threading through the pines in soft hissing tones that echoed too much like human words. Around noon, I went to refill the water barrels and noticed something that froze my blood. Footprints. Not outside in the dirt, but pressed faintly into the mud near the well, forming the shape of my exact height, stride, and gait. I stumbled backward, my stomach twisting, my hands shaking. They were too precise to be anyone else's, too deliberate to be natural. And yet no one had been there. I scanned the woods. Nothing moved. No bird, no animal, no human. Only the soft hum of wind brushing the treetops. The creature wasn't just learning my voice anymore. It was learning my body, my gestures, even the rhythm of my steps. That evening, I tried a trick. I left the cabin and walked slowly in circles, hoping to confuse it, to see if it would follow my real path or the path it thought I'd take. At first, nothing happened. Then from the far side of the clearing, I heard the rustle of leaves, light, precise, synchronized with my movements. I froze. My pulse thundered in my ears as the sound mirrored every step I took. The shadow moved along the tree line, stopping when I stopped, tilting its head exactly as I tilted mine. Panic gave way to a cold clarity. It wasn't just watching, it was practicing me, rehearsing, preparing to become me. By nightfall, I dared not sleep. Every creak in the cabin, every whisper in the wind felt like an announcement of its presence. Then I heard it in my own voice again, softer this time, calling my name from the woods. I didn't respond. I couldn't. And then came a laugh. Adrian's laugh. perfectly mimicked, echoing from every shadow, every tree. My hands went cold around the shotgun. I realized suddenly it didn't need to step into the clearing to terrify me. It only needed to exist in my perception. The forest itself had become a mirror, reflecting back something that was me, but not me. Hours passed. Eventually, I drifted into a fitful half-sleep on the couch, shotgun across my chest, and that's when I felt it. A presence at the window, tall, still, impossible in form. Its head tilted, just like mine had when I peeked out, and then it spoke again, softer than before. "You're awake." No words should have sounded so familiar, yet so wrong. My blood ran cold. I realized that this thing wasn't just imitating, it was waiting for me to make the first mistake, and I had no idea how long it had been planned. The night air settled thick around the cabin, carrying a scent of damp earth and pine that should have been comforting, but wasn't. Every time I glanced at the windows, I felt a weight pressing down, as if the trees themselves were leaning in to watch me. I kept the shotgun within reach, sitting on the couch in silence, straining to hear anything beyond the faint rustle of leaves. At first it was subtle, small taps on the siding, like nails being rapped gently. My pulse throbbed in my temples and I froze, waiting for the sound to repeat. And it did. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, deliberate, too rhythmic to be natural. Then came the whispers, my own voice, fragmented and wrong, seeping through the walls like smoke. It called my name softly at first, then tried phrases I had never said aloud, fragments of thoughts I hadn't shared with anyone. "I know where you go," it whispered. "I know how you move." My chest tightened, every hair on my body standing on end. I stumbled toward the window, flashlight shaking, and swung it across the yard. Nothing. The clearing was empty, or at least it looked empty. I had begun to understand the terrifying rule of this thing. It didn't need to be seen to terrify. Its imitation was enough. Hours passed in a tense limbo. I tried to reason, to find some pattern, some logic, but the creature's presence was maddeningly unpredictable. Then the sound shifted. Instead of coming from outside, it came from within. The floorboards creaked softly and a shadow flitted past the corner of the living room. My stomach plummeted. I raised the flashlight and caught it in a split second, tall, thin, almost human. Limbs bent at impossible angles. Face too smooth, too familiar. It froze as if it had noticed me noticing it. Then it moved again, slower this time, imitating the way I had shifted my weight when I approached the window. I realized with a cold clarity that the creature wasn't just learning my body, it was learning my mind. Every hesitation, every breath, every glance, every step I had taken in the cabin was being cataloged and studied. It had been here before, repeating my voice, waiting for me to grow careless. The terrifying truth hit me. If it succeeded in imitation, it could become me entirely. And then the question that made my throat constrict. How would anyone know the difference? By midnight, I had barricaded myself in a corner, shotgun pressed to my chest, flashlight off, praying it couldn't see me through the walls. But the thing didn't need to see me. It knew. And then it called my name again, my exact voice, soft, pleading, terrified. It sounded just like me. I held my breath, trying not to respond. But I knew that if I stayed silent too long, it would grow bolder, closer, until there was nowhere in the cabin I could hide. And in that moment, I understood one undeniable rule. It only needed one mistake, one slip of breath, one moment of human panic, and it would be inside. By the fifth night, I had stopped trying to sleep. Darkness was no longer a friend. It was a veil behind which it moved, practiced, and waited. Every shadow in the cabin seemed to thicken unnaturally, stretching, pulsing, as if breathing with a rhythm I couldn't match. My flashlight, once a source of comfort, now seemed to make it more aware, highlighting empty corners only for it to vanish and reappear somewhere I hadn't looked. The tapping on the walls had grown louder, deliberate like fingernails dragging slowly across the wood. And then came the whispers, my voice again, but fragmented, pleading, and filled with fear I hadn't yet felt. It was inside the cabin now, not just in the tree line, learning me with every passing second. I tried reasoning with it, talking, reasoning aloud, telling it it had no right, that it couldn't know me, but my words were met with silence. Only the floorboards shifted, and faint scratches traced patterns I hadn't noticed before. I realized that it was mimicking not just my voice, but my movements. Every step I took toward the kitchen, every glance toward the window, every panicked breath I drew, these were being copied, cataloged, rehearsed. And somewhere deep in the shadows, I could feel it. Watching, waiting, learning how I would respond before I did. I decided to confront it, to end the torment before it became unstoppable. I gripped the shotgun and moved slowly toward the living room corner, where the shadows pooled thickest. I whispered my own name, testing whether it would answer. Immediately, the air shifted. A subtle, human-shaped distortion appeared against the wall tall. Limbs bent unnaturally, face smooth, yet vaguely familiar, mirroring the exact posture I held with the shotgun. It lifted its head, and I swear, in the dim light, I saw it practice my expression. My fear etched on its featureless face. I raised the shotgun, breath catching, and fired into the corner. The sound was deafening in the cabin, echoing off walls. Dust and leaves from outside fell through the open window. I hadn't realized I'd left cracked. But when the smoke cleared, the shape was gone. No impact, no hole, no sign it had been there. Only my own voice echoing in the dark whispered back at me, "You can't see me yet, but I know you." My fingers shook on the trigger. I realized then that it didn't fear me. It feared nothing at all. It only calculated, practiced, and waited for perfection. By the end of the night, I was collapsing in exhaustion, leaning against the wall with the shotgun across my lap. But the silence was deceptive. Somewhere just beyond the cabin, it had learned something new: patience, precision. And now, having mirrored my actions and reactions perfectly, it no longer needed to imitate. It only needed to wait for me to make the first real mistake. One slip, one careless breath, and it could step out of the shadows entirely. And I truly knew that I wasn't ready to face it. By the sixth night, my sense of reality had begun to fray. The forest beyond the cabin was no longer a place I could trust. It had become a gallery of illusions, a stage for something older and smarter than I could imagine. Every time I looked outside, I swore I saw figures moving just beyond the tree line. Tall, impossibly still, tilting their heads exactly like I did, mimicking gestures I hadn't even realized I made. My own reflection in the cabin window seemed to falter, as if it were not me alone staring back. And somewhere beneath the quiet, I could hear my own voice, not mine exactly, but a perfect echo repeating my fears aloud in a way that made the hair on my arms rise. The creature had begun to test the boundaries of the cabin itself. Footsteps now came from the attic, the cellar, behind walls I hadn't even considered exploring. Doors rattled on their hinges as if something heavy pressed against them. Yet no one was there. I could hear it breathing through the walls, my own rhythm, slowed, exaggerated, amplified, mocking me in ways I didn't even recognize. Every sound I made was cataloged, every panic measured, every heartbeat noted. It didn't just want to imitate me, it wanted to be me, to replace every nuance, every instinct, every memory. I tried to fight it mentally. I whispered my own thoughts aloud, trying to confuse it. "This is a trick," I said to the empty cabin. "You are nothing." But even as the words left my lips, I could hear them spoken back in my own voice, slightly altered, sharper, colder, with the pause I always made before the word nothing. It was learning not just my body, not just my speech, but my mind itself. I realized that one more night like this, one more error, and it would step out of the shadows fully, indistinguishable from me. Around midnight, I finally understood its method. The creature didn't rush, it didn't attack, it mirrored, it waited, it forced me into patterns, forced me into panic, then mirrored those exact behaviors until I was exhausted, confused, broken. It wanted me to call my own name, to make the sound that gave it power. And tonight, I felt it pressing closer than ever, standing at the edge of perception, shaping the air around me into my exact presence. My shadow in the firelight elongated unnaturally, stretching toward the corner where the dark pooled. And for the first time, I was not sure which shadow belonged to me. I had to act. I gathered every ounce of courage I had left and decided to step outside. The forest loomed, black and infinite. I whispered a single command to myself, a mantra against the thing. It is not me. And I ran. Branches clawed at my skin, leaves whipped across my face. Every sound in the night amplified into a chorus of whispers, my voice echoing back at me, twisted and alien. I stumbled into a clearing and froze. The creature waited. Or rather, I thought I waited, but was it me or it? Two figures stood there. One human, one something wrong, perfect in its imitation of me. And both breathed, mirrored, and watched, the darkness stretching between us like a knife ready to cut. The forest was silent when I stumbled into the clearing, every breath ragged, every heartbeat echoing in my skull. Two figures stood there myself, or at least what looked like me, and the creature, perfectly mirroring every detail, every expression. My mind spun in terror. I could feel it studying me, waiting for the tiniest flicker of fear, the smallest twitch of hesitation. It was no longer just mimicking me, it was anticipating me, and the horrifying truth crystallized. If it succeeded fully, no one would ever know the difference. My own identity, my life, would be stolen entirely. I tried to call out, to move, but my voice caught in my throat. The imitation stepped forward, its movements smooth, deliberate, almost casual, too precise, too human. My instincts screamed to fire, to run, to fight, but I froze. And then I realized the only thing it feared was confrontation with truth. It had learned to imitate my voice, my body, my reactions, but it had not learned my awareness, my memory of what was real, what belonged to me. I had to break the mirror it had built before it became perfect. I shouted my real name, not a whisper, not a mimicable echo, but a raw, guttural cry from the core of myself. I am me! The sound cut through the night air, shaking the trees, rattling the ground beneath our feet. For the first time, the creature faltered. Its perfect imitation stumbled, as if the rawness of my own identity was something it could not replicate. I advanced toward it, forcing it backward, using the rhythm of my own confidence as a weapon. Every step I took was mine, every breath mine, every heartbeat mine, and slowly, inch by inch, it began to retreat. I could feel the forest shifting, the shadows resisting it, the very air pushing it away. It let out a sound that was my voice, screaming in frustration, confusion, and something almost human. Then it paused, as if realizing that perfection was unattainable. With one last glance at me, a mirror of my fear, my defiance melted back into the tree line. The imitation vanished as though it had never been, leaving only silence, broken branches, and the faint echo of leaves settling. I collapsed to my knees, exhausted, heart racing, the forest around me finally quiet. The cabin loomed behind me, still intact, still mine. I knew it could return, maybe it always would, but for now, I had reclaimed my identity. The night sky began to lighten, pale streaks of dawn breaking through the trees. The imitation had been patient, clever, terrifying, but it had underestimated the one thing it could never steal: my awareness of who I truly was. I rose slowly, shaken but alive, knowing that the woods had been conquered for now. As I stepped back toward the cabin, the forest seemed to breathe with me, each shadow shrinking into its proper place. And though I knew the creature lingered somewhere, waiting, watching, practicing for another night, I understood a truth I would carry forever. The imitation can mirror everything but cannot replicate the essence of a life lived fully. I had faced the thing that taught me, and I had survived. And for now, that was enough.